That is NBC Sports Pro Football Talk. Mike Florio, also founder of ProFootballTalk.com. You can find his book, also Playmakers, is still available out there if you want to go out and get a good read on. Thank you for your time. I know you are a busy, busy man this week and in high demand.
Glad to be here. Glad to be here. I have my set in a corner of the madness, so I very rarely venture beyond it. I made the trek across, survived it, and am over here on the other corner of the world.
Look at this. I mean, this is what we get, guys. This is what we get here on Final Countdown. We get Mike Florio to make the walk over here. So listen, let's get down to this. What do you think is the actual biggest story heading into this game? Because we have everything from, is it the ankle? Is it the shoulder of Hurts? Is it the offensive line going to dominate for the Eagles? Is it, Travis Kelce can't be stopped? Whatever it might be, the coaching experience of Andy Reid, all these different things. What do you feel is actually the biggest storyline heading into
I think it's as simple as, can Patrick Mahomes be Patrick Mahomes? And I tend to believe that he can be. We're going to be 22 days removed from the ankle injury. He was able to play well enough in their last game against the Bengals. And I also believe that when you throw in the Tom Brady retirement and the heightened sense that Mahomes has to have, if he's ever going to even come close to getting into the same conversation with Tom Brady, he cannot blow this opportunity to get to Super Bowl win number 2. Who knows when they'll be back for a shot at number 2 if he doesn't get it now. And you can't get to 3 unless you get 2, and you can't get to 4 unless you get 3. And the years are starting to tick by. He's got 5 years in now as a starter. So I just think there's going to be a level of determination. We saw it from him in the game against the Bengals. I don't think that's diminished at all now that they've gotten past the Bengals and gotten to the Super Bowl. I think they're very motivated to get that. I know the Eagles are too, but there's just a difference with the Chiefs.
Right.
And also the experience matters. 3 Super Bowls in the last 4 years, I think that's a difference maker as well. I don't think the Eagles know what they're quite getting into until they show up and do it.
Mike, it's so nice. We quote you so often on the show. It's really cool just to actually hear straight from the source on this one. And we just had Shane Vereen on the desk a few moments ago who said a very similar thing, that this is a Chiefs team that's very, very motivated. And I'm curious how much you think it plays into account that for a Kansas City team that's used to being here, they only have won one Super Bowl during this time with Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes together. Like, them being in this underdog type of a role, that's unique for them. Is that something, too, that's another factor?
I think that adds to it. Patrick Mahomes has never been an underdog in any postseason game in his career. It felt like they were the underdogs against the Bengals, and they opened as the underdogs, but it swung the other way, and it stayed there. They use that motivation, and we've seen this with players and coaches over the years. They'll find anything they can to put the chip on their shoulder, and if there's nothing, they'll make something up. They don't have to make it up now. They're the underdogs, and they can use that to make themselves even more prepared, even more focused, even more ready to go take care of business. So, look, I could be dead wrong, and it wouldn't be the first time this week, but this is one that's got a strong gut feeling to me. And I wish it wasn't that clear, because when it's that clear, it makes me feel like I'm missing something. And I know the Eagles are a great team. One of the points that Chris Sims made on our show, PFT Live, earlier this week, and I think it's a good one, the Eagles really haven't been tested, especially lately. It all happened easily for them against the Giants. It happened easily for them against the 49ers because Brock Purdy got injured. And, there was a while there after Purdy got injured where the 49ers hung in there. They tied it at 7, and then that's when the dam started to break for the Eagles. But I just think the Chiefs have been through the fires against the Jaguars, through the fires against the Bengals, and that serves them well also.
Here with Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk. Mike, so you said it's been a while. We're just assuming that the ankle's going to be okay for Patrick Mahomes. It looked like he played perfectly fine even when it wasn't supposed to be okay. Now, you talk to people like to talk to you. What should we assume about this shoulder thing with Jalen Hurts?
I would assume, and this is not based on any inside information, this is just a vibe that you pick up from the patterns and the trends and the developments of the past 20 years. I suspect at some point in the days after the game, we're going to find out Jalen Hurts is either having or has had surgery on that shoulder. That it was just something that he was able to play through after he took some time off, but it's something that isn't going to be 100% without surgical intervention, and it won't surprise me. Remember 2 years ago when Patrick Mahomes was dealing with turf toe that took just enough away from his mobility to allow the Buccaneers to get to him with 4 rushers without blitzing, and even though Mahomes tried everything he could to keep them in the game, it wasn't meant to be. He gets surgery on the torn tendon in his big toe the Wednesday after the game. So I think that the shoulder is an issue. They've been very quiet about it. There's been a little transparency. Why should they be? We see that time and again. But it makes me wonder, can he make all the throws? Can he do it accurately? We had a pack of plays the other day, struggles in the NFC Championship game, guys that were open, missing guys, because you're not playing as much. You're not practicing to the full extent. You don't have that same rhythm that Mahomes or other quarterbacks would have. And I think it is going to be an issue. I'm far less worried about the Mahomes ankle than I am about the Hurts shoulder. Interesting.
And I think that's a very, very good point when it comes to Hurts, because as you mentioned, not having been tested largely this season, especially in the postseason against the Giants and the 49ers, he hasn't really had to do a whole lot to see if that is an issue. Because you brought up the Brock Purdy injury and him going down, we did get a little bit of insight yesterday that it seems like he'll be able to have surgery later on this month and be available for training camp for the San Francisco 49ers. George Kittle earlier today saying he thinks it's Purdy's job to lose next year. How do you view the quarterback situation in San Francisco?
I think so much of it does come down to when Purdy is 100%. I saw that Purdy said today that there's a possibility that the surgeon will decide on a more complex procedure when they go in there. It's one of those where you just don't know until you go see what the specific damage is, what you need to do to fix it, and then you have an idea of how long it'll take. They gave up so much to get Trey Lance, who broke the ankle in week 2 and seems to be on the verge of being ready to come back. I think you view it as we have 2 guys who can play, we let them compete, and we see who's ready to go. And if Brock Purdy wins the job, off he goes.
Right.
If Trey Lance wins the job, off he goes. But you know you've got the fallback in the event that Lance gets injured again. It's just unfortunate for him. And I always feel bad for players who come into the league with the high expectations inherent to being the 3rd overall pick. With Lance, you throw on top of it everything they gave up to get him, and it created a level of presumed performance that he's never had a chance to live up to. I just feel bad for him, and I hope he gets a fair chance to win the job. It's a good spot for the 49ers, though. They got 2 guys, and we'll find out which one ends up earning the job, and Kyle Shanahan, I'm sure, will treat it as a meritocracy.
So, Mike, after the I guess the darkness, whatever we were going to call this retreat that is going to go on with Aaron Rodgers, whatever. Yeah. So after all this, let's say he decides that he is going to. I'm
too old to have any patience for this crap.
I mean, let's say he decides to come back after he sits in the darkness for 4 days or whatever it is. Are we at a point with the Packers? Do they want to move on?
It's $60 million. Okay, Aaron, you don't need to lock yourself in solitary confinement for 4 days to decide whether or not you want $60 million. You either want $60 million or you don't. What do you got to do to get $60 million? You got to do what you've been doing every year since 2005. I mean, come on. At a certain point, grown-ups have to make grown-up decisions. I think this is just ridiculous. I'm sorry to be so candid. I'm tired. It's been a long day. But I've had enough of this Aaron Rodgers crap that he has to go do some special thing. Take ayahuasca, lock himself into a room for 4 days, go to the moon. I don't know. Like, just make a decision like everybody else. We all make tough decisions with our lives all the time. I'm sorry to vent. It just drives me crazy.
Well, I mean, I guess with all of that, do you think the Packers feel that way at this point too? I mean, are they going to move on? Or are they kind of like, hey, man, we're enough of this. We got a first-rounder sitting on the bench for multiple years now.
The Packers, I think, deep down would like to move on. Jordan Love has sat for 3 years, just as Aaron Rodgers sat for 3 years. And I firmly believe in 2008, the Packers went to Brett Favre in February, knowing full well that if they said to him, we need a decision right now, the decision would be, I'm retiring. So they said it, he did it, they barricaded the door with furniture, and they moved on, and then it blew up later. I think they want to finesse something with Aaron Rodgers, and that's part of this. I think they are ready to move on, but they have to make Rodgers think he's the one. You know, you're dealing with a delicate genius, and you have to tiptoe around him, and maybe they should just lock him in there and throw away the key.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.